now I'm going to turn the floor over to Paul Zohav to share what he's up to. Take it
Well,
away.
thank you. Growing out of the wisdom course, actually, one of Molly's best friends, Kay Keeler, was my communication access to power course leader in 1998, which set me on an arc to creating ultimately marriageandcommunication.com. I started out as a domestic violence counselor 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long before I elected to prevent it rather than treat it. So I've been looking rigorously for what if possible, what if present would make the difference. And kind of, but basically our school curricula teach us to know and to retain and to test. Nowhere along the line do they teach us communication or relationship skills. You think in high school students would like relationships, communication skills, and beginning to make a difference like that in Tucson. Essentially, I see couples from 17 years old to 87 years old, empty nesters, new couples, veteran couples, couples in their third marriages who want to do it right the next time. I say pretty much everybody, including families with teenagers. And, my elevator speech is, sex and intimacy got you to the altar. Good communication will see you through to your golden wedding anniversary. I got that out of business BNI. And so I create with my couples what I call a dashboard for marriage. Skills, insights, and best practices that when you install them will keep you growing as a couple for the rest of your lives. Starting with acknowledging that people tend to react. You say something to your spouse, they react. They say something to you, you react. After a couple of reactions, you've forgotten what you're talking about. You're so busy reacting. Reacting is good when there's a limited set of responses, like a red light, stop, don't stop. But in all human relationships, it obliges us to stop, pause, reflect, and choose. So the very first place we go is yes and. No matter what anybody says to you, you say, yes, and tell me more, especially from Ed. Yes, and when should we talk about this? Yes, and how would this affect our futures? How do other people feel about it? Yes keeps us connected and keeps us allows us to choose our future. Anything after the and, that's next. Yes, and it opens up lines of communication, up to and including the person who hates you most gets into your face and says, "You're a waste of space. Why don't you commit suicide and do us all a favor?" You say, "Yes, and let's talk about that." After their jaw hits the ground, we have a possibility of communication. Yes, and opens up lines of communication. Work, home, parents, children, doesn't matter. It keeps us connected in a way that a no and a but cannot. The second best time all-time best friend is seems. We tend to speak declaratively, as if what I'm saying is the truth, like I'm doing it right now. We speak declaratively, automatically. And we get to be responsible that the person with whom we are speaking has a truth app. Good, bad, right, wrong, agree or disagree. I got that in my landmark forum with Jeff Wilmore 22 years ago. Good, bad, right, wrong, agree or disagree. And if what you say to your partner, friend, child doesn't match what they intended, what they meant, and what they believe, what they're, we'll launch into an argument. Whose truth is truer? Whose reality is the most real? And who's right and who's wrong? Notice that there's no communication when that happens. So provided you want to communicate, seems best friend forever. Seems to me we avoid talking about. Seems to me we bring up the past again and again. Seems to me that one of us gets upset, the other one tends to pull away. The seems bypasses the truth app long enough to open up lines of discussion and negotiation. Yes, and seems to keep you out of the rabbit hole all week long. You don't have to be in the rabbit hole longer than it takes to say yes. It's, a week without an argument. Say yes. But we do a lot of work and then yes and in seems. So there's 5 sessions of 90 minutes each, and they'll make it to the 50th wedding anniversary. I'll guarantee it. Yes, and about 2 weeks apart. We look at their love languages by Gary Chapman. People get to understand that their partner doesn't feel loved in the same way you do. And when you've read the book together, which is the assignment, you find out that you may be loving them in your best love language, but it's not theirs. I am quality time. Rita, my spouse, is acts of service. And when you get it, you naturally gravitate to those ways of being and acting that leave us most us. And we can take a look at Myers-Briggs. You know, if you're a thinker married to a feeler, it's worth knowing that. I'm assuming most of us have heard about the Myers-Briggs personality type. And I'm focused, my book I'm writing is focused on sensors. Sensors are which 3 out of 4 people are sensors. They just want to know how to do it. They don't care why. Don't bore them with the details. They follow policies, procedures, rules, regulations, manuals, and recipes. And if you say, why do you do it that way? They think you're crazy. Why are you bothering with questions? They're not reflective. They don't tend to be reflective. Let's put it that way. And so I provide couples with a recipe for extraordinary marriages. And I worked with a couple with a 14-year-old. It was so inspiring. Yes, and we pay a lot of attention to the context of language. I have some time. How do you know if you're living a survival life? I asked them. How do you know? I said, well, if you can hear an or else, something else is living your life. If you have to, or else, you need to, or else, you should, or else, we must, or else, I've got to, or else, which means you're not living your life. All the things you're afraid of that you have to get to are living your life. And I point to them, what if we change an O to an E? Let's see what happens. From a got to life to a get to life. Everything flips. A get to life, you're in the driver's seat from now on out. A get to life, a have to life, you're always being driven by something you have to. You know, you're not living your life. You have to. You get to. You have to. You ought to, should, and must. That's kind of an eye-opener. In fact, I'll ask for your own at home. Ask yourself, what is your favorite have to, need to, should, ought to, and musts? I have to go to work. I have to do this. I have to go shopping. Then change it to get to and see what happens. I get to go to work. I get to go shopping. I get to learn how to communicate with my partner. So that's your homework. You know, look at your get to have tos, turn them to get tos, and see what happens. It's a total shift. It's a total paradigm shift for living. I get to see couples. I don't have to. I see about 15 to 20 plus couples every week for an hour and a half. And I'm in the life business. People walk in with less life and they walk out with more life. And I get life by providing this environment in which they can have the skills, insights, and best practices for a marriage that lasts a lifetime. You get to, you know, people walk in, well, mostly a lot of them on the edge of divorce, or maybe there's a current, maybe premarital, which is an awfully good idea. Well, they've been married for 40 years and now they're ready to find some new ways of communicating, or I'll say divorce. So you might say that pain sells. But 1,000 people touch my website and I get to serve 15 to 20 couples every week. 5 sessions, good to go. And that's, you know, that's basically communicate. I reversed engineered apology and all kinds of appreciation, and when people appreciate each other, because people tend to say you're welcome to a stranger, not at home. Isn't that interesting? We grew up, most of us, in a generation where we say, you're welcome. They grew up in a generation where, no problem. I'm good. Think nothing of it. I'm okay. No worries. And when you say thank you is an invitation to connect. When you connect, you feel life. When you say you're welcome, life shows up. Well, that's like a little nutshell, the kind of experience. I train 135 teachers in Tucson United School District for yes, ands, and seems, and they're Myers-Briggs type. And I handle couples who are in Australia, in Florida, in Ohio. I can do it by Zoom if necessary. And any enterprise invites me in half an hour, I will leave them transformed in the way they communicate. 30 minutes. I'd say 5, but then you think I'm boasting. So I'm Paul Zohav, Master's in Education and Counseling from the University of Virginia. I've been a hospice chaplain, community chaplain, and so that's my 10 minutes. So I'll stop now, and I can go on for this a long, long time. I love doing it. I learn new things every week. So, Penny,
All right. So
you're muted. Questions?
What do you need, Paul?
I'd like to get the word out that there's an extraordinary, uncomplicated way of communication that will provide you the life you design. I'd like to be invited to conferences. I'd like to be invited to train human relationship staff trainings. I can zoom in and leave them in half an hour in a brand new space. Because people react, but when you respond, life arises. That's why I'd also could use are you writing your book yet? I'm kind of about most of the way through it, but I'm kind of in the doldrums of procrastinating. So I do that too. And I just love doing this stuff. It's so invigorating. marriageandcommunication.com, paul@marriageandcommunication.com. Reach out. I'll happily bend your ear for as long as you're willing to listen. Other questions? Molly. And you're muted.
What would you say the statistics you've presented? I mean, it sounds like a good curriculum, a good process for couples to be in, and if they really play. But what would you say the percentage of they stay together versus divorce? And I don't mean failure and success for you. I just mean the statistic.
Well, my straw poll, I'd be confident in saying that 3 out of 4 couples that come to me remain together. I deal with infidelity, don't forget. A good third of the couples, infidelity, loss of trust is an issue. And I have a high degree of success. As I can say that, occasionally they'll say, well, we had our first session, now we know we're getting divorced. Done. But it's very rare. Everybody gets yes, ands, and seems, and that alters their future.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome, Molly. Amy.
yeah, so I think in the emails that we traded back and forth, you talked about going into schools. So do you have like a program for schools, like training students?
I've been invited for the professional development days for teachers.
Okay.
So in my fantasy, that Mrs. Jones, the dog ate my homework. And Mrs. Jones says, yes, how do you want to handle that? Boom. The proverbial 13-year-old that says, do I have to do my homework? And parent says, well, I can't give you a pass for homework, but how you approach your homework, that's up to you. You have to do your homework. It takes longer. You learn less. You do the minimum to fulfill the assignment, and your grades will look like that. If you, beloved child, get to do your homework, it gets done sooner, you get more out of it, your grades will look like that. It's up to you whether you get to or have to do your homework. And there's a difference between a D and an A. Tova. And you're muted. There you go.
So you said about 1/3 of your
Couples.
you deal with infidelity. How is it that you have people work through that? Do you have them work through it through inquiry with each other and you, or
Well, the first thing I point out is that infidelity is a symptom. It's not a cause. It's at the tip of an iceberg. And I invite us to disappear the iceberg so all the symptoms disappear. And they've never learned how to speak love languages. They've never learned how to say yes, ands, and seems. The person says, calls me up and says, something's wrong with my wife. And it turns out that she's been inviting him for quality time, basically, over and over and over again. He's got his nose in his business. For the fact that she looked for quality time someplace else. She became vulnerable to finding that which we feel most loved and connected from another source. That's almost universal. They don't feel appreciated. They don't have quality time. Physical touch has gone out because, well, that can go longer on that one. And when they learn how to create an extraordinary marriage, they mostly tend to forgive and stay.
Yeah.
Not again. See, this is not a manipulation. I tell her, this is not a way to trick you into staying in your marriage.
Right.
Somewhere around the third session, you may be an accepted invitation to forgive and remain. And I also point out to men that there isn't a woman on this planet that feels safe. Men feel safe. There isn't a woman that does. I invite them to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Because one of the unexamined agendas for marriage is, am I safe with you? When I'm not feeling safe with you, I tend not to stay married to you. Long story, collapsed.
Good one.
You know, what, really? Yeah. You and I have a safety drop-down menu, but yay big. There's they big. And it's important. I provide a whole lot of insight, language, support, along with the skills, insights, best practices, love languages, personality types. And then with the first session, by the end of the session, they see light at the end of the tunnel. By the end of the third session, they go, whoa, what a marriage. That's my offhand description. It's a symptom, not a cause.
One of the things that I'm listening to hear is how people discover that with you for themselves. Like not just learn it, but actually discover it within themselves so that they are then at the source for themselves, probably for the rest of their lives.
I would say inevitably, well, the homework from the very first session is, and I give them a copy of Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages. And they get to read the first 9 chapters aloud together, taking turns. Because when you do that, we do the learning. And Gary Chapman does a brilliant job of real people, real examples, and they can attune themselves to the couples he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a major, and then I have them take the 16personalities.com, which is Myers-Briggs version. And when they realize that the thinker is not ignoring her feelings, he's just not on his radar. Like Sheldon in Big Bang Theory, or Professor Higgins in My Fair Lady. We're old enough to remember My Fair Lady, right? He taught, Eliza Doolittle to speaking like a princess. He's not completely aware. He's not aware of her feelings. He's winning a bet. So I do maybe more knowing in the course, but at home they do the being. And once they realize, oh, you're not feeling appreciated or touched, or it's transformative. They do it because they get to do the being. I can point them in the direction, and I've reversed engineered apology in a way that really works, which I can't talk about now. But skills, insights, best practices, how to listen and be completely 100% heard. Also, no time for that. Very first session, the first half an hour, they learn how to listen to each other and be 100% heard. First 30 minutes to work. Anna Maria, are you done, Toba? Are you done?
Yeah. Thank you very much for responding to that.
Call me, reach out to me. I'll help anybody that connects with me. Anna Maria.
Hi, I had a question. The military, let's just say, gobbles up marriages.
I see a lot of firefighters, military. I have a bunch of helicopter pilot mechanics for some reason recently, law enforcement, border patrol, since I'm in the Tucson area, There seems to be some special challenges to have a relationship with people in those kinds of jobs.
Yep.
But it's the same skills, insights, and best practices. And my straw poll says I have a high percentage of success.
My
And-
question,
And same-sex couples too.
right. I have another question. Do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I'm a little bit technophobia, a little bit. I have a website, marriageandcommunication.com. There's some videos there and testimonials. It's been on my list, but my focus is to get the book out. Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life.
Okay, that sounds great. But if you were also to do not more than a 1 or 2 minute,
Yeah.
hey, when you react versus respond,
Mhm.
or not giving as much life to your life, but if you're not reacting and you're responding, you're giving life to your life.
Yeah.
I just said that in seconds. You can give a little bit more information and boom, you're done with your first video. And do you know when you do that, you're opening life, especially to my comrades that are losing their lives.
It's a major challenge, especially in the military. He's deployed for 6 months. She's running the show. Then he shows up. What do you do? And they got 2 kids. Yeah, you're right. YouTube, doing 2-minute TikToks or YouTubes would be very powerful. Yes, you're right.
Yes. So I'm just
Yes, and when are you going to do that, Paul?
as one Lamar grad to another, I'm just trying to point something out where you can really give life, where we're losing life.
Well, thank you. For some reason, I'm feeling afraid or trepidation or something, and there's some mischief there, and I am aware of it, and you're right. 2 minutes on a YouTube, and they got something for their life. I got it. Thank you for reminding me.
I want to be conscious of the time again. So yeah. Molly.
Yes. Paul, I just wanted to know, have you been teaching like workshops at the global conference?
Not in communication. I did something else years back. I'm waiting for the hybrid to come in so we can show. I don't do well by Zoom, but yeah, I've done posters at the conference twice. I led a breakout room in another area of my life, living legacy, and yeah, I would love to do that.
So it sounds like, I mean, you are like a resource with wonderful gifts for all of us, and there's a stop between you and technology or the venues to get your word out there and touch more and more people. So I just want to put this out there. I don't know if you need listen to me with the gray hair, you need a younger partner, someone that could work with you, that could help open those doors. So I don't know who's in your network, in your world.
This is the background I could use for the YouTube. And
Yeah,
if you call me up, I'll just tape myself and it's done. Easy as that.
So good luck in finding that partner to help you. Thanks.
And Tara?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so we could put to bed that you've been on a Zoom call now and you did it 10 minutes. And so we could put to bed the conversation. I don't do well on a Zoom call.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And again, being conscious of the time. So what is it that y'all are left with out of what Paul had to share and
Can I go first?
Sure.
Hey, Paul, I will commit to 15 minutes a week and I will help you get on YouTube.
Woo.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Grab
We can make 2 5-minute YouTubes in that 15 minutes. No problem.
We got it. We'll do it.
Maybe Jamie will give you your piece of this one and you can slice and dice it.
Oh yeah. It'll be posted on YouTube.
Okay.
What I'm left with from Paul,
Boom, done.
were you complete? I just want to say what I got from Paul is really self-examining my communication skills with people and whether I'm using just a simple seems or the yes and. So, I'm taking away little tips and gems.
Please, and on my website, there's like some short videos.
Ah, okay.
Again, about 9 minutes, 5 minutes. And there's a little bit there, but especially yes, and seems.
Thank you.
It's the key to, it opens things up. You don't have to be in the rabbit hole longer than it takes to say yes. Yes, Anna. And you want to have somebody else to say, Anna Maria? And you're muted.
I'm going to lower my hand. We're good. I just got
Okay.
your calling you tomorrow. No. Yeah, actually I will. I'll give you a call.
I'm in Tucson, which is basically the same time zone as Pacific at this point.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
All right. Thank you very much.